Number 1. Under paragraph 65.3 of Schedule 3 ITA 1967, buildings used for the following purposes are not treated as industrial buildings, which is dwelling house, retail shop, showroom, and office. Number 2. In paragraph 66 Schedule 3 ITA 1967, there are stated that only part of a building or an extension to a building is used as an industrial building. The whole building or extension is to be treated as industrial building if the capital expenditure on the construction of that part of the building which is not in use is less than 10% of the cost of constructing the whole building. And if the cost of the non-qualifying part exceeds 10% of the cost of constructing the whole building, then industrial building allowance IBA is given on that proportion of the building that is in use as an industrial building.
75% rule, which are stated in Schedule 3 ITA 1967, is applied when a person incurs capital expenditure on preparing, cutting, tunneling, and or leveling land in order to prepare a site for the installation of the machinery or plant to be used for purpose of a business. And if such expenditure exceeds 75% of the aggregate cost of that planning or machinery and the cost of installation.
Now, let's discuss about computation of qualifying building expenditure, QBE. QBE is capital expenditure incurred on the construction or purchase of a building which is used at any time of its construction or purchase, as the case may be, as an industrial building. Number 2, the qualifying expenditure date are as follows. For constructed building, we're going to use the date of construction completed or business commenced. As for purchase building, we're going to use the date of purchase. These are few items which is non-qualifying expenditure. Cost of lands or sites, any cost related to buy land or site such as legal fees and stamp duty, legal expenses on loan borrowed to construct the building, and the cost of terracing and leveling land.
Initial allowance IA and annual allowance AA. An initial allowance of 10% on a straight line basis of the QBE will be given to a person if all the following conditions are fulfilled. First, he incurred QBE on the construction or purchase of an industrial building. The building was in or about to be used as an industrial building for business. The person on the building at the end of the basis period. Annual allowance AA is given to a person who incurred QBE on the construction or purchase of an industrial building which may not be in the same basis period, claiming AA is the owner of the building at the end of the basis period. The building was in use as an industrial building for the purpose for business.
Notional allowance. NA is allowed by Malaysian Inland Revenue Board to be calculated for the year of disuse. Means the NA will be deducted in arising the new residual expenditure. However, it is not allowed to make any claim on IBA in tax competition. Notional allowance is equal to the annual allowance rate.
Disposal of industrial building. According to paragraph 48, Schedule 3, disposal is defined as the sale, transfer, or tutorial of the relevant interest in the building, where the interest depend on the duration of a concession to coming to an end of the concession. Where the interest is leasehold interest, the termination of this lease interest in the building, except where the termination occurs as a result of leases, acquisition of the freehold interest, the demolition of or destruction of the building ceases to be used. Introduction to Industrial Building Allowance. A taxpayer has incurred expenditure on the construction or purchase of industrial building which is used for his business is entitled to claim IBA. IBA is deducted from the adjusted income in arriving at the statutory income of a business. Second, these are categories under industrial building which is mentioned in paragraph 63, Schedule 3, ITA 1967 on page 227. Third, paragraph 64, Schedule 3 defines a factory as a mill, a workshop, a building for the housing of machinery or plant, whether for the manufacture of any product, the subjection of goods or materials to any process or generating of power used for the manufacture of process. 4. There are two types of building which are mentioned as industrial building under paragraph 65, Schedule 3, ITA 1967. First, building used for staff welfare. Second, building for living accommodation of employee.
The land. Planting expenditure. Planting but not replanting of crops on land cleared for planted. Replanting refers to the replacement of the crop of any area of land to produce on the same area of crop of the same product and includes reforestation of a timber. Construction on a farm, of a road or bridge. The farm is referred to as any land used for the purposes of agriculture. Construction on a farm of a building used for the purposes of a business of that person which consists wholly or partly of working of the farm, or the construction on that farm of a building which is provided by that person for the welfare of his employee. Annual allowance rates for agriculture allowance. Agriculture allowance is only given upon agriculture expenditure incurred for new planting. Any agriculture expenditure incurred in respect of replanting activity will be treated as revenue expenditure deductible from gross income. The rates for agriculture allowance are as follows.
Date of incur of QAE. The day QAE is deemed to incur is stated in paragraph 55 of Schedule 3, that is, in the case of any expenditure incurred of the construction of a building The day on which that expenditure is incurred is the day on which the construction of the building is complete. If the date not same day with construction complete, the date referred to when it brought to use. In other case, the day QAE is incurred is the day on which the amount of any expenditure become payable.
Forest allowance. Forest allowance is given to a person who is carrying on the business of extracting timber in a forest and has incurred qualifying forest expenditure. Paragraph 29, Schedule 3 Income Tax Act 1967 specifies that a person who is entitled to a forest allowance in respect of any expenditure shall not be entitled to any other allowance under Schedule 3 in respect of the same expenditure. A forest is defined in paragraph 8 to Schedule 3 to mean a forest in Malaysia in respect of which a person has a concession or a license to extract timber therefrom for the purposes of a business of his which consists wholly or partly of that extraction. Qualifying forest expenditure QFE. QFE consists of capital expenditure incurred by a person on the construction in a forest, such as a road or building used for the purpose of a business of which consists wholly or partly of the extraction of timber from forests, or a building provided by him for the welfare of person or as living accommodation for persons employed in or in connection with such extraction. These are the annual allowance rates for forest allowance.